guys, welcome back to another episode of Integrative You Radio. You have the luxury of having Dr. Nick today, as well as myself, and we're talking about a hot topic of are people just assholes?
Gotta get my
So
notebook. I gotta get my notebook for this one then.
I was thinking about this in detail, and usually a lot of the times we come up with our podcast episodes is just in real life conversations that we're having with people. And of course, we've navigated things on our own of, just like, gosh, like that's such an interesting behavior, such an interesting thing that we experienced with this person. And I just think it's a natural thing that we've all navigated to varying degrees in our life. And I was really thinking about the root of it all, the root cause. And this might shock some of you, but I don't think that the majority, I'm not going to speak for everyone, I don't think the majority of people are actually malicious assholes. Like, meaning they really intentionally want to hurt you and cause pain. I definitely think there are some people that unfortunately operate out of that place. But my theory, and I'm curious to hear Dr. Nick's spin on this, is that I think a lot of people have zero fucking interpersonal skills. They have zero understanding of behavior, human behavior. They have zero skills when it comes to compassionate communication. They're usually too wired and fired up that they don't listen. And I think a lot of people lack the bravery to have difficult conversations. Something that we said that honestly was introduced to me in the business world was conflict avoided is conflict multiplied. And I sat with that and I was like, shit, that is so unbelievably accurate. If you avoid a conversation, the conflict blows up. And maybe it's for you, maybe it's for the other person, but the probability it's both of you. Because if there's no communication or there's no true understanding, you have the opportunity to create stories. Or if there's hard feelings that don't get resolved, they brew, they brew, they brew until someone explodes. And I know both of those dynamics are happening in families, they're happening in relationships, they're happening in friendships, they're happening in businesses, they're happening employer to employee and vice versa. And so, kind of recapping is, and Nick, I'm curious what you have to say about it, but I think that a large portion of the population is not intentionally malicious, intentionally causing harm, but they lack bravery and they don't have any fucking skills. They don't have skills to sit and really think outside of the box and see a situation for what it is. They don't have the ability to understand why a person might be operating the way they are because they can't think past themselves and their own feelings. And they don't have any skills. None of us learn skills unless we have to. The only reason Nick and I learn skills of communication, leadership, listening is
Because I
because we
wanted
were
Dr.
running.
Nicole to stop beating me.
Well, there's definitely that. But you probably would still be taking the beatings if we didn't run a business together
I
because
mean,
it
sometimes
was,
I intentionally, cause you pain so that you beat me again because I like the pain.
yeah, you are kind of sick. So that's a different topic for a different podcast.
I
But
gotta keep
yes,
people on their toes. They're listening to this. I'm like, what the fuck are they talking about?
I think unfortunately I don't want to say unfortunately, fortunately, a lot of our listeners would be like, I get it.
So, excuse me. My first question for you is, what is an asshole?
I, I think
But I
it's
mean,
what I
people
said
like
before.
people
It's
like that guy's
people
being.
intentionally like I think we use this word asshole, and it's just, a word that we use. And like sometimes we use it being, especially my Jersey New Yorkers, it's like we're being funny, like, you're an asshole. And then sometimes like we're using it like that person did something to me and they're an asshole. And I think it's, if we were to define it, I think it has a different definition for a lot of different people, but we might be placing people in this category of they're an asshole, thinking that they are intentionally and maliciously harming us. Like an example is I got I got cheated on. My husband cheated on me. And it's like they're an asshole. They're a terrible person. They did this to me. They destroyed the family. They. But on some circumstances, people are looking for a way out and they cheat because they know that that is a way out, because if the other person says fuck you, I'm done with you, they make the hard decision because the other person, who the cheater, lacked the bravery to have a really fucking hard conversation.
Yeah, I mean, so we'll get back to that. The reason I asked you that question is because people, including ourselves, um, if we're not conscious enough in the moment, we label.
Yeah.
And labels tend to be all or nothing. So that person's an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, well, what does that mean? Is a better intelligent question. You know, what's making them, my perception, be an asshole? Okay, they're acting like an asshole in that moment. That's not who they are.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how they've acted their entire life with me. That's just this moment, maybe a couple moments,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not all the time. We put somebody in a label, this is why I don't like quote unquote diseases, because that's that's a description of that's who you are. That's what this person is. That's not true. So if we label something, we're already putting somebody in a box that's not true. And unfortunately or fortunately, how the brain works, it's very efficient, is it's always trying to fill in the gaps, the mind. So if we put a label on something, we're always unconsciously as well as consciously looking for something to what? Verify that label.
Yeah.
Yep, did it again. Fucking asshole. Yep, you always do this. Well, and that person also does a lot of other things. But if you're only looking for something to verify your belief system, which is the label, then you're missing out on a lot of what life has to offer you. And we're going to be connected, we're going to be attached, like Buddha always says. The root of all of our suffering comes from our attachment. Attachment is the belief system. The belief system is how we label the moments.
Yeah.
So, so really, when you think of people being an asshole, yes, coming back to what you said, 100%, you know, unconsciously, consciously, people will do things out of what they believe will best serve themselves. So if they don't want to have the conversation, this is going to be an easy way to exit, strategy, especially in like relationships. It's like, I don't want to make it about you. I'll take the blame. What's an easy way to get out of it? Boom. I'm gonna be an asshole, so you leave me, so I don't have to leave you. I'm gonna cheat on you, so you could leave me, so you know I don't have to hurt you, even though you're hurting somebody. Um, you know, people's brains are weird, but yeah, there's always gonna be that initial strategy that somebody's using, and they might not understand it, but there's always a strategy.
Well, kind of like I want to expand upon this idea because I do think that there's a lot of people that have felt betrayed in certain ways, and this could be through a friendship, it could be through a romantic relationship, and um, there's obviously so many different versions of it. But the going back to what I was saying is people lacking a very specific skill set this is not necessarily always about avoiding the conflict or avoiding a hard conversation, because in the event of say, someone being married, they have kids together, and they've developed a life together, they own assets together, they own a house together, their lives are very, very intermingled. Like there's a level of complexity there. And the probability that it gets to the tipping point that someone is cheating is that there's been different things that have been happening and snowballing down the hill for a period of time, but they kept, you know, oh, we had the other kid, we bought another asset together, and they're kind of like everything is eating away. So one is, it's not just about one person, it's about like awareness, because if you're in a situation that you got cheated on, that's going to piss some people off, but like, you shouldn't be fucking surprised. If you're so surprised and you're so floored and you're so like, holy shit, I never in a million years thought that this would happen, that means that you are not paying attention. You're not aware of the subtle signs. You're not aware of behaviors that are showcasing that someone's needs are not being met. Someone's not in it. Someone's not committed. Someone's not happy. And nobody is saying that anybody is right or wrong, but it's going back to this idea of developing a skill set for a great life, because a great life is composed of feeling like you have some type of purpose and mission when it comes to your career. It's having relationships beyond your romantic relationship. It's feeling like you're doing the best you can as a parent, and you're developing great kids. Like, it's not one-sided. If you have a good marriage and everything else is shit, you're not going to have a great life. So this is about paying attention and understanding the signs, the signals, the behaviors all around you, and also understanding that, if, again, going back to this one particular example, which there are a million examples to, that go along this topic, is if someone cheated, and it's not as black and white as they lacked the ability to just have a hard conversation, they might not even know exactly why they're unfulfilled. And it's not always because of you as the partner. There could be so many things that are happening, but they don't even know how to verbalize it, because there's so many holes and voids and wounds. And so they don't have the conversation, maybe not necessarily because they're not bold or brave enough, but because they're like, I don't even fucking know what's wrong with me. Like, I don't know why I feel the way I do. I don't know why I'm always looking for something or someone outside of my spouse. Like, and so this kind of brings us to like the bigger picture here, is that you don't learn this shit in school. You don't learn this with your traditional therapist. You don't learn this through going to your doctor. Like, you don't learn this unless you commit to learning it. You invest your time, your energy, and your money to learn it. Like, this is something that no one's going to give to you. You have to be curious enough to develop these skills on your own, instead of just thinking you're a victim.
Well, and the nice thing about it is that it's pretty easy,
Oh,
honestly.
here we go.
Well, it is. It's like a huge lie that we've been told because, and I, for the most part, I agree with 100% everything you said. The the only tiny little part is the the surprise aspect. It's like
Okay.
it is a surprise. It can be a surprise even if the individual doesn't know where it's coming from
Mm-hmm.
and they've been lying to themselves so long that there's
Yep.
such a strong facade up that the other person, it'd be very difficult to get the clues. The clues are always there, but if that's not their zone of genius, it's not going to be
Mm-hmm.
an easy thing to pick up on, etc. But when I said the easy part is you talked about paying attention. Okay, well, in a business, you don't just pay attention, you collect data. That's how you pay attention.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
that's how like yeah, pay attention in your family, but the way to truly pay attention is to collect data. And that's why having with meetings for yourself, meetings for the couple, meetings for the family structure, that's paying attention. That's because paying attention for the most part is a lot of it's subjectiveness. You know, it's like, oh, this person's having a reaction, this person's doing things that makes them happy, etc. But to be able to set aside space and time where you evaluate yourself, you evaluate your relationship, you evaluate the family dynamic, and that's objective.
Mhm.
And this is why I say it's not that hard because there's a fucking million businesses that are doing this. Not a million families, not a million
Yes.
couples, unfortunately, because it's the same process, just different worded differently. But you have a group of, I'll give it an analogy, is like you have a group of executives. And what's fun about the executive board is that they're all asking questions, hard questions most of the time, and they're not getting emotional about it. They're not pissing
Yeah.
each other off saying, "Oh, this is, you're fucking hurting my feelings by saying this," or, "I invested a lot of time and you don't care about like what I created, blah blah blah." They don't care. They're there for one thing, the growth of the business and how
Mhm.
to grow it as efficient as possible, profitable for stakeholders, etc., or small business, just profitable for themselves. And you're going through and you're asking hard questions and you're going through objectively to figure out what's the best answer, what's the best decision, what's the best action plan, how can I have, quote unquote, the biggest return on my investment. If we looked at our relationship like that, of, oh, you said it like this, or you meant this, but I know you didn't, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that's all subjectiveness. That's not objective. The objective portion is like, okay, you said this, you know, A, how can we communicate better?
Mhm.
What was the breakdown? Why was there a breakdown? Was it you or was it me? Or was it both? How can you learn how to better speak to me so I'm not triggered? How can I learn how to not be triggered because I'm only triggered because of I was hurt in the past? And I'm triggered to what? Protect myself. That's what a trigger is. A trigger is something your unconsciousness coming up online saying, "Hey, you were hurt in the past. You better
Protect
protect
yourself.
yourself because you're going to
Yeah.
get hurt again."
Yeah.
That's what a trigger is. If you don't heal the trigger, balance that past moment out, you're going to continually having that protective mechanism come up,
Mhm.
which is going to be reactive, not proactive, subjective and emotional, not objective and balanced. And you're never going to allow yourself to be able to have the best action plan, be the most productive, have the most return on your investment, grow the relationship, grow yourself, grow the family. So like you said before, is there's never one thing. There's always a lot of reasons why somebody does something. But what's great about that is every moment has the potential for both parties involved to use it to grow.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying is really important because a lot of times when we are in relationships or we are an employer of employees, like we, I don't know what it is necessarily about, the human nature, but we tend to think that everything is outside of us and that, we need to help the other person see differently. We need to help them. And really, at the end of the day, the only thing that we can control is ourselves and how we show up, how we communicate, how we collect the data and think about the situation. So it's okay for you to be, emotional or triggered in the moment, but it's just the opportunity for you to take the pause. Sure as fuck, do not have a conversation when you're in that state because it will go nowhere. It's pretty much a feedback mechanism to showcase the parts of you that are out of balance, and then for you to sit with a series of questions in order to get clarity on what's the root of this? Where is this coming from? Because this is at the end of the day, when we get these triggers, like we move into that victimization. But we're the first people to judge when other people are acting like a victim. You know, we hear it in their verbiage of this happened to me, they did this to me, this they did that. And but we still will act that way when we, quote unquote, have bad things happen to us. You
Yeah,
look
I
like you have
mean,
something to say.
well, no, part of it's just realizing that nobody's better or worse than anybody else. That we all have traumas, we all have problems, we all have shit. They look different and etc. They're packaged differently.
I want to say something about that though, because I know that there are people in very specific situations where they're being villainized. They're um they're the villain in someone's story all the time. And, anytime they speak to that family member or that person, there's always something to be said about, you did this and you said that and you act that way and you did this on this holiday. Blah, 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 blah. And and I want people to understand that you're not the villain of their story. You just represent the parts of them that are unhealed. You're representing their most polarized emotions. So I want people to understand this, and I want you to see it in yourself too. If you are villainizing someone else in your story, someone in your family, someone, in your friends group, someone even in your business, if you're villainizing that person always fucks up, that person always does this, that person always does that, that's a representation of your own shit that you have not navigated, you have not healed, you have not thought through, you have not worked through. And the same thing is happening on the vice versa. So use this as an opportunity and stop. Like you can give just as much energy of either villainizing someone or being the victim, or you can spend energy actually collecting that data, as Dr. Nick said, and understanding that the only thing you can control is yourself, and understanding the root of why these certain triggers, emotions come up for you.
I wasn't going to talk about it, but can I expand on that?
Yeah, sure.
So speaking of like the villain aspect, I always break things down into the polarization aspect of it. So there's the emotional and the non-emotional. So it's like if you think somebody is a villain, 99% of the time, the person connected to it is emotional. That the villain is all bad, not good, not a hero, the opposite. So the emotional part is the reflectiveness showing that you have something that's not healed, hence the trigger, the past, to protect yourself. The non-emotional part of that is that person may just not be in a hierarchy of serving one's values. So
Yeah.
that's when people are like, oh, well, you know, I don't like hanging out with this person. That doesn't mean they're a bad person. They don't have to be a bad person just because you don't want to hang out with them or be around with them. You want to be around people that are serving your highest values, what's most important to you,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what builds you up. That's what makes you a better person. That's that's the alchemy of turning something from lead into gold. You know, it's like you don't want to put energy on the lead, the problem. You want to put energy on the destination, the gold. What's most important to you, what you value, your worth.
Can I plug in
So
an example? Because I think it's just short, sweet, and relevant. Um, like a great example when it comes to what you were just saying is like, I know for us as a couple, because our values are actually somewhat similar, is we enjoy being in a group like a social circle, like at a house with, friends, acquaintances. And we actually invite challenging conversations. And, they could be intense conversations, but if the root of it is for growth, but if people are having challenging, intense conversations, but it's like for the sake of just like talking poorly on behalf of something, someone, politics, etc., I have no interest in that. I'm fine with being around people with differing values and differing opinions as long as the reason why we're inviting the conversation is for, for us to learn and grow and be curious. But if people are having these like intense conversations because they want to push their political views down my throat, I don't care what your political views are. That's not the point. The point is that for some reason you think that I should subscribe because your belief system and your values are more superior to mine. And so this is kind of what we're talking about is like I could walk out of a party and be like, that guy's a fucking asshole. And it's not that he's an asshole. It's just not in alignment with my values and what I want to be around.
I'm sure multiple people have thought that I'm an asshole. So back to the villain really quick, as we're gonna probably wrap this up sooner than later, is that when you think about villains, and it kind of goes back to intentionally hurting somebody, what a villain truly is, quote unquote, a true villain. Not that anybody is just a villain, because we play all traits and we have both sides of every trait, is that the part of the expression of the villain is the expression of someone that's been hurt. And what's what's great about life, not always fun, is that we want other people to feel how we feel. If we feel great, guess what? We want other people to feel great.
Right.
If we feel shitty, guess what? We want other people to feel shitty.
It's a form of empathy or what people desire is they want people to empathize with them. They want people to
It's
share
the law of
common
resonance.
struggles, laws of
It's just
resonance,
the law of
100%.
resonance. It's one of the universal laws, principles.
But, I'll be
So we
honest and I don't
attract we
go ahead.
attract what we feel.
Yeah. But I will
So
say that there's a level of I don't want to say difficulty. It's just when you are always trying to be a better version of yourself, um, especially in the beginning phases, it can feel a bit isolating and lonely. Um, and I'd be curious your perspective on this, but I actually saw a post the other day and I was like, that's really interesting. And it was saying, isn't it funny how you had such a big friends group when you were the shittiest version of yourself? And now, as you're one of the better or best versions of yourself, your friends group is so much smaller. And I was like, gosh, that is so fucking accurate.
what's the blanking out, Gay Hendricks, the
Okay,
leadership
Hendrik.
guy?
Yep.
Um, haven't listened to his
Or
podcast in a long
Maxwell.
time. Yeah, John
John
Maxwell.
Maxwell. Yeah.
Um, I haven't listened to his podcast in many years, but he had a podcast and it was titled "It's Lonely at the Top," and he talked about like, please join me. It's lonely up here,
Yeah.
um, and it is, and it is and it isn't. Um, Initially, the perception is that it's lonely because you're going from talking about universal principles and laws.
Quantity.
You're going from the law of one to the many. Well, you're going from the many back to the one.
Yeah.
So you're going
You're going
from
from quantity to quality.
yep, and the quantity is all of the emotions,
Yeah.
and
Well,
the one is unity, not the diverse, the breakdown, the duality of those emotions, but back into gratitude, unconditional love, joy, back into being whole instead of being broken. And there's not many people that are more whole. There's more people that are more broken.
yeah.
And this is why we can look at people and be like, oh, you're a villain. The villain is just another description for somebody that's broken, somebody that's hurt, and they feel hurt. So they attract people that are also hurt around them, events that are hurt around them, just as a feedback mechanism to create more awareness of the broken part so
Hmm.
that we can bring it back into a state of balance to heal it. When we do, that's when we experience gratitude, love, and joy. And that's when we're whole again. That's when quote unquote true healing occurs.
And
So
also, I think that, there's very specific and easy to implement tools that can help you through this process to get more to, this joy, love, and gratitude that Dr. Nick is talking about. And I want to give this to you, and keep it very simple. Obviously, as you master one layer, you can expand upon this, but for the simplicity of this starting point, is some of the solutions really just lie in thinking, taking some time to think and ask yourself one major question. And Dr. Nick might have his own question, but the reason why I'm saying this is because if you are emotional because of a person, a situation, that is not the time to have a conversation. It's not the time to make decisions. It's the feedback mechanism to say you need to take a fucking pause and you need to go sit with yourself and give yourself the time and space to think, but you have to ask very constructive questions that are going to give you that objective data and give you a place or an opportunity to make a decision out of inspiration and not out of a chaotic, I'm emotionally triggered, desperate state. Okay? Because people make way too many fucking decisions from that place. So, one of the questions I ask my clients very often when they're telling me the story of how this person did this to them or this person's an asshole, etc., and they usually are very confused with the question, is what if you took radical responsibility for this situation? Like, think about it. If someone just told me, I just found out I was cheated on, and someone asks you the question, what if you took radical responsibility for this? Automatically, most people are like, how fucking dare you? He did this to me.
I
She
mean,
did this to me.
with a guy or a girl?
Yeah.
Could I join?
Oh my God.
Hmm.
There's Dr. Nick. Um,
I had to make you
Normale.
smile. We can't get too serious all the time.
But this is a really, really fucking important question to ask, because if you
Well,
had to
just to
take radical,
interrupt, I
go ahead.
asked the same question, just probably more simple because I'm a man. T-
Go, let me hear it.
Radical responsibility. I'm like, ownership. Where have you
Yes.
done the same or similar? You
Yeah.
know?
Where have you
Because
done the same or
that's
similar?
we only judge someone who we think what is worse than us or
Yes.
better than us.
Yes.
So as
No,
soon
I
as we
think
can see
both
that,
questions are key, because I'm the way I'm thinking about it is different.
soon
So,
as we can see that we're the same, there's no judgment.
yes. And it's not always um black and white. This is why you have to spend the time really, really thinking. And sometimes it could take weeks, months, it could take a while. Um, Based on what you just said, I want to throw in a quick example. It took me years in the business. We had a value that was how you do anything is how you do everything. I couldn't wrap my head around how employees would cut corners that would compromise a patient's experience or a patient's outcomes. I couldn't fucking wrap my head around it. It was like grounds for termination in our business. I was like, that's not how we operate here. We give 100, we give 1,000. Like, we do not cut corners. And then I was doing something actually more recently, and I was like, "Oh my God, remember how Dr. Nick always says that, like, the thing that you judge the most, you own." And I was doing something in the kitchen and I fucking like threw something somewhere. I threw a bunch of shit in the dishwasher like a fucking raccoon on drugs. And I was like, "Oh." So pretty much my whole life, the whole idea how you do anything is how you do everything. So I gave 1,000 when it came to business, but when it came to things in the home and domestic, and I was like, I'm not gonna fucking iron. I don't care what detergent I use. I don't care if my kitchen's clean. Like, so it's not always black and white, and it literally took me years to finally own the fucking trait that I judged so much. But radical responsibility for this, what I mean is, if you can only control yourself And if you think about how did I contribute to this circumstance, this conversation, this outcome, then that's the only thing that you can work on to change. So if you were distant, if you were mean, if you were whatever it was, if you were not aligned in values, if you were, playing a certain role in the situation, what can you do in order to work on yourself, be more true to your values, and not relive the circumstance in the future? That's one of the best things that you can do. I think a lot of times when we have these conversations, people will say, like, they don't care, they never call, they never do this. And like the question is like, do you? Oh, well, no, but they should. And it's so you don't do it, but you expect them to do it. That doesn't make any sense. So if you're looking for something in a relationship, out of an employee, etc., then you also need to exemplify that. Like you don't stop waiting for other people to do shit, and stop waiting for people to read your fucking mind. Like, just stop. Either say, let's have a conversation about this, get on the same page, get aligned, or you do start doing the very thing as like what's the saying? The olive branch.
The what?
I've always fucked these sayings up. lend like lend the olive branch. I don't know, whatever. I've ruined that.
I think it's time to wrap this one up.
Okay, we're gonna wrap this up. The point is, if
Lend
you
the olive branch.
what is that fucking saying? Anyway. So the moral of the story is take some time, think it through, ask yourself, what if I took responsibility for this asshole, this outcome? What if where do I also own this very thing that I'm judging? And like you said before, is if this is relational, if it's again, employee to employer, if this is husband, wife, 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 husband, husband, if this is kids, parenting, consistency, communication is key. AKA, it's people, families always think it's crazy when we invite them to this. You need to have a meeting. Like, just fucking wing it. Like, if you want the exact framework, we will give it to you. There'll be a link in the show notes of exactly how to meet with your partner, your life partner. And then it gives you an idea of how to translate that down to the kids. Because if you don't do this, you just are playing the game of we should read each other's minds. Oh, I'm frustrated. Oh, it's chaos. And guess what? You're the ones creating it.
Yep. It's something I never want to do. Is try to read your mind. It's scary.
Oh yeah, it's terrifying. Don't do that.
All right.
All right. See you next time.
Ciao.